The night was draped over Worcester, Massachusetts, like a vast indigo blanket, punctuated by distant sullen streetlights. Benjamin Cole moved carefully through the city's arteries, his gaze drawn to an ancient, weather-beaten warehouse, its lofty silhouette, an urban monolith, towering stark against the forlorn night sky. It was in this necropolis of industry, this sepulchre of commerce, that the heart of his investigation pulsed. Benjamin was an island of humanity amidst the sea of shadows, a solitary figure that stood against the abyss, driven by a fierce need to protect his younger sister, Lily, from the encroaching malevolence that had befallen their beloved city. He moved with the stealth of a practiced observer, his boots whispering stories against the concrete. His hands were calloused, his eyes held a soft glow of resolve, his once youthful countenance now marked by the rigors of his profession. He was a journalist, and his pen was mighty, not as a sword but as a scalpel, dissecting the mysteries and exposing the unseen veins of the city he served. Strewn around him were discarded crates, forgotten remnants of transactions carried out under the cloak of darkness. He knelt, his fingers tracing over the coarse wood, as if reading Braille, trying to understand the language of this silent witness. His eyes caught on the patterns of recent footprints, and he inhaled deeply, drawing in the stale aroma of burnt tobacco that hung like an uninvited specter. As he immersed himself in this dance of discovery, a familiar shadow of paranoia started to creep in, riding on the coattails of the city's nocturnal breeze. His skin prickled, the echoes of old traumas resonating, whispering tales of eyes lurking in the shadows, of unseen predators. He shook it off, taming the beast of his mind, telling himself it was but the echo of the city's heartbeat he was feeling. He retreated into a local diner, a worn-down establishment that stood as an unwavering testament to better days. Within its warm, buttery glow, he found solace. Across from him sat Maisie, a silver-haired waitress with knowledge as rich as the coffee she served. "Maisie," he began, the plea hidden in his voice just audible enough for her to hear. "Tell me about the old warehouse." Maisie sighed, her age-lined face a map of memories before she began to speak. Her tale was a time-worn echo, a narrative of prosperity, decline, and an undercurrent of unspeakable events that had left a disquieting hush over the warehouse. His heart pounded in his chest like a war drum as she spoke, her words painting pictures that danced in the back of his mind. He left the diner, his soul heavier than before, carrying the weight of the city's forgotten tales. As he stared into the brooding darkness, a flicker of something, an ethereal ripple, seemed to warp his reality. He blinked, dismissing it as exhaustion. But beneath the skeptic's veil, a seed of cosmic horror had been sown. It lay dormant, for now, a prelude to the terrifying symphony that was yet to come. Night transitioned today, but for Benjamin, the darkness of uncertainty never lifted. The shadows of the previous night still clung to him, a persistent murmur against his psyche, weaving a tapestry of unease that bled into his waking moments. As the sun cast its mellow morning glow over Worcester, he found himself adrift in an ocean of anxiety, treading the tumultuous waters of his investigation, his fear, and an unsettling new addition: his visions. The visions were like ghostly whispers from another realm, insidious specters that twisted his perception. Images of nebulous entities, of swirling shadows and discordant landscapes seeped into his reality. At first, these intrusions were infrequent, as fleeting as a half-remembered dream. But as the day wore on, they strengthened, their edges growing sharper, their presence more insistent. His sleep had become a battleground, the space between wakefulness and dreams invaded by a macabre parade of his darkest fears. One moment, he would be amidst the familiar hum of his typewriter. The next, submerged in a surreal nightmare where monstrous forms lurked within the depths of his subconscious. To the outside world, he was a fortress, a beacon of determination, unyielding in the face of adversity. But within his mind's labyrinth, he grappled with his visions, struggling to keep the monstrous shadows at bay. He tried to attribute them to stress, his mind teetering on the precipice of exhaustion. Yet there was a niggling feeling that there was more, something far more sinister at play. In search of understanding, he sought out the historian, Elijah Proctor, a man of letters with a curious fascination for the city's darker tales. Proctor resided in a quaint old-world library nestled in Worcester's heart, surrounded by dusty tomes and spectral silence. A rich dialogue unfolded amidst the musty smell of aging paper, their conversation a slow waltz between the factual and the speculative. "The warehouse, Benjamin," Proctor began, his voice a rustling whisper, "has always been at the center of unusual occurrences, stories of eerie sounds, of vanishing folks, rumors of a curse." His words, though laced with caution, painted a canvas of dreadful possibilities. Benjamin absorbed the historian's tales, each word weaving together like the threads of an ominous tapestry. His reality and the visions tangled together, the boundaries between the two becoming indistinct. As he departed from the library, the weight of the historian's tales pressed heavily upon him. Outside, the day's light had dimmed, giving way to an oppressive twilight. He stared at the bleak warehouse from a distance, its grotesque silhouette mirrored in his mind's eye, morphing into the monstrous shapes from his visions. The whispers grew louder, the spectral shadows dancing more fervently. As dawn wove its golden tendrils over Worcester, Benjamin found himself sinking deeper into the quagmire of his visions. The veil between reality and hallucination was gossamer thin, a fragile membrane that swayed with each spectral breath of his waking nightmares. The once crisp images of his world now seemed to bleed at the edges, hues of mundane reality melting into the bizarre palette of his fearful visions. His every moment was tinged with an aura of the uncanny. The faces of passers-by would warp into grotesque masks, the cityscape transformed into a labyrinth of monstrous shadows. The grating roar of the city would weave into an alien chorus, a symphony of whispers that gnawed at his sanity. His perception was like a reflection in rippling water, distorted and fragmented. Yet amidst this personal pandemonium, he carried on with his investigation. His pursuit of the smugglers was dogged, fueled by a desperate desire for the normalcy of his past life. He pieced together the puzzle, each clue a lifeline grounding him in the tangible world, a beacon in his increasingly blurred reality. Connections were made, names linked to faces to the warehouse. The net around the smugglers tightened. He met clandestine sources, shadowy figures in dim-lit bars and alleyways, their words adding layers to the emerging picture. Yet beneath the surface of this crime story, the terrors from his visions brewed, gaining substance and momentum, like a storm-gathering force in the heart of the ocean. His every lead, his every discovery seemed to strengthen them, feeding the cosmic horrors that lurked within his psyche. Then in a twist of fate, he found himself cornered by the very men he sought to expose. In the desolate labyrinth of Worcester's backstreets, he was trapped. A tense encounter ensued, words flung like daggers, threats veiled under harsh laughter. He faced down the barrel of a gun, his life hanging by a gossamer thread. But Benjamin was a survivor. A swift, desperate maneuver, a gunshot echoed in the dank alleyway, and he was free, the underworld figures left behind in the maze of shadows. He arrived home breathless, the taste of fear and triumph bitter on his tongue. But his escape had only intensified the horrors within his mind. His world was no longer his own. The menacing shadows from his visions now held dominion, their grotesque forms dancing in a macabre parade that seemed to have no end. His reality had spiraled into an abyss of cosmic horror, his sanity the only tether keeping him from plunging headlong into the chasm. Benjamin Cole, the stalwart journalist, the protector of Worcester, now found himself a mariner adrift in an ocean of cosmic horrors. His reality was shattered, replaced by a swirling vortex of unimaginable terror, his mind the epicenter of this seismic shift. The whispers had grown into a cacophony, the shadows hardened into monstrous forms, his visions becoming his inescapable reality. In the sober light of day, he was a shell of his former self. His sharp eyes were now haunted mirrors reflecting the grotesque specters of his visions. The once persistent journalist, his spirit indomitable in the face of adversity, was now a shattered figure. His soul was a canvas of dread, his heart an echoing chamber of fear. His investigation, once his anchor, had become an afterthought. The hunt for the smugglers seemed a mundane affair in the face of his personal apocalypse. The real battle was now within, a war against the terrifying entities that threatened to consume him whole. And then, in the ultimate face-off between the mortal and the unfathomable, the shadowy terror from his visions materialized in the heart of the desolate warehouse. This sinister entity was a monstrous amalgamation of darkness and horror, its form an ever-shifting chaos of nightmares. He stood before it, not as a journalist, not as a protector, but as a fragile human against the backdrop of an uncaring cosmic panorama. Their confrontation was a dance of horror and despair. Words failed him, his journalistic armor worthless against the cosmic entity. Instead, he used the one weapon left to him, his humanity. His love for Lily, his desire to protect his city, became his silent plea, his defiance against the cosmic entity. The entity, a child of the chaotic universe, remained indifferent, its existence a testament to the insignificance of human emotions. His pleas echoed in the vast, hollow expanse of the warehouse, his words devoured by the entity's dark maw. In his final moments, as the cosmic entity reached for him, Benjamin Cole wasn't a martyr or a hero. He was a man caught in the merciless grip of cosmic horror, a human life extinguished under the indifferent gaze of the universe. His death wasn't a tale of triumph, but a chilling ode to the unknown horrors lurking beneath the veneer of our reality. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed our content, show your support with a like and subscribe, and stay notified by hitting the bell icon. Expect more cosmic horror from Eldritch Tales Factory, and feel free to explore our other stories. See you in the next video.